This girl was burned by a great fire for a day and a night, but not only was she not injured, but there were also 3 little dragons beside her. That girl was the mother of dragons, Daenerys Targaryen. Before Daenerys discovered that she was the mother of dragons, she was just an ordinary girl. Her eyes were clear, as if filled with hope for this world. Her brother was Viserys. He forced his sister to marry Drogo. Drogo was the lord of the Dothraki. This marriage would bring 40,000 cavalry to support the Daenerys family. Viserys would use those cavalry to regain the throne. Daenerys worriedly told her brother that she did not want to be Drogo's wife. She just wanted to go home. But Viserys said he also wanted to go home like Daenerys, but their home had been robbed, so Viserys had to kill all the bad guys to take back the house. And Daenerys was the assistant who helped Viserys do that. Daenerys had no choice but to obey her brother. Soon after, 3 fossilized dragon eggs were brought. These 3 eggs would make Daenerys the mother of dragons. Drogo also gave Daenerys a white horse. Just like that, the wedding of Daenerys and Drogo was completed. After the wedding, the Dothraki clan did not go to the mainland of Westeros immediately because they did not have a boat, so they could only return to the Dothraki territory first, which was also the city of Vaes Dothrak. On the way, Daenerys heard the maid say that dragons had been extinct for a long time, but Daenerys still tried to take care of these eggs. Daenerys also asked the maid how to win Drogo's heart. Not long after, Daenerys gradually integrated into the life of the Dothraki people. She began to learn Dothraki. Daenerys also asked her handmaiden to teach her how to charm others. Daenerys learned very quickly. Soon she conquered her husband Drogo. Viserys felt that Daenerys' status among the Dothraki was getting higher and higher, and he was of no value to them. This made Viserys very upset. He angrily pointed his sword at Daenerys. At this time, Daenerys was also very dissatisfied with her brother, but she did not want the Dothraki to hurt Viserys. Daenerys also gradually understood, even if Viserys had an army, he was not strong enough to lead it. Then Daenerys would never be able to return home. Soon Daenerys was pregnant. The Dothraki had a tradition. That is, when the chieftain's wife was pregnant, she had to eat a raw horse heart. So after Daenerys ate the horse heart, her position in the Dothraki tribe was further consolidated. Viserys saw that his sister was highly respected by everyone in the tribe, while he was treated as if he did not exist, which made him extremely angry. Viserys knew that relying on Drogo to regain the throne was impossible, so he prepared to steal the dragon egg. He would sell it to get money to recruit soldiers and buy horses. But at this moment, Viserys was discovered by Jorah. Viserys was furious and had just drunk 2 more bottles of wine. He was drunk and ruined Daenerys' celebration. Viserys also pointed his sword at her stomach. Viserys said he only wanted what was his. That was the crown that Drogo had promised. Viserys' words angered Drogo. Unexpectedly, Drogo agreed with Viserys. Drogo also said that whoever saw the crown would tremble. Viserys laughed with satisfaction when he heard that. After Viserys lowered his sword, Drogo immediately ordered his soldiers to restrain him. Then Drogo melted his gold jewelry. Viserys saw this and immediately called for help. This time, Daenerys did not speak up for her brother anymore. She stood still and watched Viserys put the hot crown on Viserys. Daenerys realized that her brother was not a real dragon, because dragons are not afraid of fire. That day, Daenerys mentioned to Drogo about crossing the narrow sea to regain the throne, but Drogo did not agree. What the Dothraki needed was a warhorse, not an iron throne, and Jorah received a letter of amnesty. It turned out that he was a spy that Robert had planted on Daenerys' side. At that moment, a merchant was about to give Daenerys a barrel of poisoned wine. Jorah quickly stepped forward to stop him. Somehow, a spy like him seemed to have won Daenerys' admiration. Knowing about the poisoned wine, Drogo was extremely angry. Drogo had not harmed the merchant, but he wanted to harm Drogo's wife and children. Finally, Drogo agreed with Daenerys that Drogo would lead his army to Westeros to help her regain the throne. Drogo would give the Iron Throne to his unborn child. If Drogo wanted to help Daenerys ascend the throne, he would need a lot of money to buy a boat to cross the narrow sea. So along the way, Drogo killed and robbed people to collect money. Daenerys could not bear to see this, so she saved a shaman. At that time, Daenerys did not realize that this kindness would cause her great pain. Daenerys' actions made her subordinates dissatisfied. One of them challenged Drogo. Although Drogo won, he was also injured in many places. At this time, the shaman who had just been saved stood up and said that she could heal Drogo. Although Drogo's men disagreed, Daenerys insisted that she heal Drogo. Within days, Drogo's wound became infected, and he collapsed to the ground. Drogo will not survive the night. Jorah wants to tell Daenerys to leave immediately, because the Dothraki only worship the strong. When Drogo dies, they will quickly choose a new leader. The first thing the new leader will do after taking power is to kill the old leader's family. Daenerys does not want to abandon Drogo. She calls the shaman again. Daenerys tells her to find a way to save Drogo. The shaman says that she can save Drogo, but she will have to give one life for another. Then she uses magic to save Drogo, but he turns into a vegetable. Daenerys's child also dies young. Daenerys questions the shaman why. Finally, the shaman laughs and tells the truth. It was all her plan to avenge her dead relatives. The shaman also predicts that when the sun rises from the west and the sea dries up, Drogo will wake up. Daenerys saw her husband so broken. Daenerys knew that if Drogo had chosen for himself, he would not have wanted to live such a miserable life. So Daenerys burst into tears and suffocated Drogo to death. When Drogo's cremation took place, Daenerys let the 3 dragon eggs and the shaman burn together. Then she started to light the fire. Despite Jorah's attempts to stop her, Daenerys still stepped into the blazing fire. The next morning, the fire was out. Jorah was about to go collect the remains when he was surprised to find that Daenerys was not injured. The 3 dragon eggs had hatched into 3 baby dragons. It turned out that Daenerys was the daughter of a real dragon. Everyone knelt before the noble lineage. From then on, Daenerys became the mother of dragons. But a new problem arose. The Dothraki had always served only the strong. So when Drogo died, most of the Dothraki left. Only a few people volunteered to serve Daenerys. These people wandered around the desert looking for a place to live. The white horse that Drogo had given Daenerys also fell to the ground. If everyone could not find food and water, they would all die here. Daenerys told a few of her best men to split up in 3 directions to find food and water. A horse returned soon after, but there was no one on it, so Jorah stepped forward and saw a bundle. It contained a human head and braids of hair. It was clearly the work of Drogo's old men. They thought it was a disgrace to have a female leader. Although Daenerys was furious at the time, she didn't know what to do. A few days later, another servant returned with good news for everyone. They only needed to go east for about 3 days to reach Qarth, a city ruled by 13 merchants. They were called the 13. At the city gate, the 13 did not believe that dragons really existed. They also did not understand Daenerys' current predicament. They asked to see Daenerys' 3 dragons first. Daenerys refused this request. The spice merchant revealed his cunning face. He humiliated Daenerys in front of everyone and then turned around and left. At this time, Daenerys was no longer the girl that anyone could manipulate like before. Daenerys angrily shouted. When Daenerys' dragons grew up, she would take back what was hers. Daenerys will punish the one who abandoned her. Then Daenerys will engulf the 13 in flames. After the 13 is warned by Daenerys in a strong way, one of the 13 members, named Sazo, steps up to bail Daenerys out because he admires Daenerys' bravery. Thanks to that, the city gates are finally opened. The Dothraki also had a place to stay. The young dragons had learned how to breathe fire, and in the evening, Sazo held a welcoming party for Daenerys. He took her to a warehouse. Sazo said that King Robert was dead, and the city was in chaos. This was a good opportunity for Daenerys to lead her army to challenge the war, and the assets in this warehouse were huge. As long as Daenerys agreed to marry Sazo, he would give Daenerys half of the treasures to help Daenerys win the throne. After returning, Daenerys told Jorah everything. Now Daenerys needed ships and troops to attack immediately. Jorah said that Sazo was a merchant, and merchants would never accept losses. Daenerys could not easily trust anyone here. Jorah agreed to find a ship, and the captain would help Daenerys leave. Daenerys was worried because she did not want to marry Sazo, so she went to ask the second richest merchant for help. He didn't think that Daenerys had the ability to regain the throne. So Daenerys was humiliated again. She didn't know what to do, so she returned to her place. But she found that the soldiers and servants had all been killed, and the dragons were nowhere to be seen. Jorah heard the news and hurried back. He felt very guilty when he saw this. After Jorah was instructed, Jorah and Daenerys went to see the 13. The priest said that he had stolen the dragons and locked them in the Temple of the Undying. Before Daenerys arrived in Qarth, Sazo and the priest had negotiated with each other. Sazo helped the priest get the dragons, and the priest helped Sazo become the king of Qarth. After saying that, the priest killed all the other 13, and he asked Daenerys to go to the Temple of the Undying. Jorah stabbed the priest, but unexpectedly, Jorah only hit the air. Jorah advised Daenerys to leave this dangerous place. He had found a boat, but Daenerys had long considered the 3 dragons as her children. She was a mother, so she could not abandon her children. Daenerys then continued to the Temple of the Undying. The priest used magic to separate Daenerys Daenerys and everyone else. Daenerys followed the dragon's roar to a circular room. There were many rooms around it. She opened a door. Here Daenerys saw the Iron Throne she had always dreamed of. When Daenerys was about to sit down, a baby's cry rang out. Daenerys entered the tent following the sound. Inside was a man sitting on a bed holding a child. It was Drogo, and the child Daenerys had never met. Everything Daenerys was seeing was wonderful, but it was all an illusion. Although she was reluctant, Daenerys still had to leave. As soon as she opened the door, she saw 3 dragons with iron chains on their legs. Daenerys fell into the priest's trap. He immediately tied Daenerys with magic, but he didn't know that dragons could breathe fire. Then, Daenerys gave the command, Dracarys. The 3 little dragons breathed fire one after another to burn the priest, and the chains also turned to ashes. After Daenerys saved the dragons, she immediately went to find Sazo. His maid was also here, and she betrayed Sazo. Daenerys opened Sazo's treasure vault. There was nothing inside. It turned out that Sazo wanted to trick Daenerys, and Daenerys also learned this trick. She immediately locked the maid and Sazo in the vault. This time, Daenerys would not hold back, because to be lenient with the enemy is to be cruel to yourself. Daenerys robbed Sazo of all his wealth. Although it was not much, it was enough to buy a small boat. Daenerys's 3 dragons knew how to keep healthy. They only ate cooked food. The dragons grew very quickly, but Daenerys was still not satisfied with this growth rate, because she could not wait that long. Now Daenerys needed to have her own army, so her team headed to Astapal Slave Bay. Here Daenerys could buy an entire army of Unsullied. The training method of this army was more terrible than death. The soldiers here were castrated from a young age. When they were 5 years old, they began training from morning to night every day. The inhumane training method made their survival rate only 1/4. The survivors were all the strongest warriors. They were absolutely loyal and obedient. Daenerys was very unhappy with this brutal training method, but now these 8,000 Unsullied soldiers were too important to her. The slave owner urged Daenerys to make a quick decision, because there were many customers interested in this army. On the way back, Daenerys was assassinated by a little girl. Fortunately, Barristan appeared in time to save Daenerys. Barristan was the strongest warrior in the 7 great cities. He was once Daenerys' father's guard, and later served Robert. When Robert died, Barristan came to Daenerys to ask for forgiveness. He knelt down to show his repentance, and wanted to return to serve Daenerys. Barristan's joining increased Daenerys' power. The next day, Daenerys went to see the slave owner Granny. She wanted to buy all the Unsullied army, but Daenerys was looked down upon by him. He thought that Daenerys did not have that much money. Daenerys proposed to use dragons in exchange for soldiers. Barristan and Jorah heard that and stopped Daenerys immediately. Daenerys looked at Jorah, but did not say anything. Then Daenerys stepped forward and began negotiating with the slave owner Granny. Daenerys used the largest dragon as a condition to exchange for 8,000 Unsullied soldiers with Craster. Jorah and Barristan continued to advise Daenerys not to do so, but Daenerys showed a very determined attitude. At this time, Daenerys had the demeanor of a king. She was no longer the weak girl she used to be. On the way back, Daenerys asked Missandei if the Unsullied would obey absolutely. Missandei replied that the Unsullied would not have any doubts. They would unconditionally obey the orders of the person who bought them, because when someone bought them, they belonged to that person. If that person ordered the Unsullied to leave this world, they would also follow without complaint. When Daenerys heard Missandei's answer, she thought of a way. At the trading place, Daenerys used chains to tie up the dragon. Is Daenerys really going to hand her child over to someone else? Daenerys took the slave master's scepter. Daenerys asked in disbelief that the Unsullied army already belonged to her. After hearing Cradney's admission, Daenerys coldly walked towards the Unsullied army with the scepter. Daenerys tested it by ordering the Unsullied to take 2 steps forward. Sure enough, they obeyed the person with the scepter. Daenerys remembered the trick of giving less in exchange for more that she learned from Sazo, and finally she had the chance to use it. Because Daenerys wanted the other party to ignore her true origin, she pretended to be ignorant from the beginning to the end. Daenerys endured Granny's insults, but in the end, Daenerys did not lose anything. Although Daenerys has 8,000 Unsullied warriors, she was not like other slave owners. Daenerys did not take their benefits. She knows that brutal rule cannot last long, so she wanted to conquer them with the beauty of her soul. Daenerys made it clear to the warriors that they were born slaves, but from now on the warriors will be restored to their freedom. They can choose to leave here. Daenerys vowed that no one would harm them. She asked those who had gained their freedom to volunteer to fight for her. One soldier responded, then all the warriors responded in turn. Not a single warrior chose to leave the army. Daenerys had truly won the army that belonged to her. She threw away the scepter that symbolized benefits. Because Daenerys had won the hearts of the people, so she did not need to use it to control the army. Then Daenerys led the army full of spirit forward. They were ready for the next battle, and the next destination of Daenerys and her army was Yunkai. The people here mainly trained slaves, not soldiers. If Daenerys wanted to take Yunkai with its thick walls and high citadels, she would have to pay a heavy price. Jorah advised Daenerys to leave it alone, because attacking the city would not help her rule the 7 cities. But Daenerys had seen how slaves were trained, and she felt that this place was hell on earth. So Daenerys decided to attack Yunkai. She wanted to help the slaves regain their freedom. Daenerys ordered the slave owners that they must surrender quickly, otherwise Yunkai would suffer the same fate as Astapor. But Bran had no intention of surrendering, but he wanted to bribe Daenerys to let her leave. But Daenerys spoke with a very tough attitude. She gave Bran 2 choices. One is that Daenerys will kill all the slave owners in Yunkai, or Bran must free all the slaves so that those people can take revenge. Bran was angry when he heard that. Although Bran could not fight Daenerys, but Bran also had strong allies. Those people would help Bran deal with Daenerys. After saying that, Bran turned around and left. The negotiation failed. The next day, Daenerys discovered that Yunkai's allies were a group of mercenaries called Second Sons. They have a total of 2,000 cavalry. This is an army with no weaknesses, but for money, they can do anything. Daenerys invited the commander of the Second Sons, Mero. Daenerys wanted to use a higher amount of gold so that they would abandon the defense of Yunkai. Unexpectedly, Mero was not grateful at all, but he also insulted Daenerys. The current Daenerys has a strong will, so when she heard the insults, she remained calm. Daenerys said that 2 weeks ago she had no army, a year ago she had no dragon, but now she has everything. This shows that Daenerys is not a person who gives up easily, so confronting her is not a wise choice. Daenerys gave Mero 2 days to think and make a decision. Mero replied in a mocking tone. He asked to see her body before deciding. Although the negotiation failed, it had unexpected results. Daenerys' powerful aura and captivating appearance captured Daario's heart. That night, a mysterious person sneaked into Daenerys' tent. He slowly took off his helmet, revealing that the person was Daario of the Second Sons. He dropped a bag. In the bag were the heads of 2 commanders. Daario said that he came to submit to Daenerys. Then he knelt down on one knee and swore that from now on, Second Sons belonged to Daenerys. Daario's life and heart also belonged to Daenerys. Thanks to Daario as a spy, Daenerys easily took over Yunkai, and Daenerys also had 2,000 soldiers from the Second Sons mercenary army. Daario raised the flag of Yunkai and said, "This city belongs to Daenerys." The next day, Daenerys led the army to the gate of the city. The slaves in the city came out. Missandei introduced Daenerys' title. Then Daenerys stood in front of everyone and declared that she wanted to give everyone freedom, but she did not owe them freedom. If people did not want to live as slaves anymore, they had to free themselves. Hearing this, the slaves shouted in unison, "Misa," which in Giscari means mother. Daenerys slowly walked into the crowd. Everyone happily lifted her up, so Daenerys liberated Yunkai smoothly. Thanks to that, she got the second stronghold. In the following time, the dragons grew bigger and bigger, but they became more and more disobedient. How would Daenerys control the dragons? After Daenerys captured Yunkai, she continued to set off for Myron. On the way, every kilometer there was a milestone. On each milestone was hung a young dead slave. There were 163 milestones in total. Daenerys was furious when she saw this inhumane thing. Her desire to liberate the slaves became even stronger. After Daenerys arrived at Myron, the nobles in the city sent a cavalryman to challenge her. That person did not respect the guests and peed on the spot. He insulted Daenerys and the Second Sons as an army of eunuchs. The soldiers' words made the nobles sitting in the city laugh out loud. Because Daario did not want to disappoint Daenerys' expectations, he proactively asked to go kill the enemy. Daario said to let him kill the enemy for Daenerys. Daenerys agreed and praised him. Daario calmly stood still. On the contrary, Daenerys felt a little worried. When Daario faced the approaching cavalry, he did not hesitate to pull out a dagger. After Daario finished off the enemy, he also gave Daenerys a loving look. The nobles in the city led the order to shoot arrows, but the shooting range was too short to reach Daenerys' troops. Then Daario even urinated in front of the enemy to show his contempt. Daenerys told the slaves in the city that Daenerys was not their enemy. Their enemy was the slave owners. The slave owners oppressed everyone and killed their children. Daenerys would not give orders, but give them the right to choose. Let the bastard slave owners receive the appropriate punishment. After saying that, Daenerys' army pushed the catapult up. Then they shot a log at the city. The slaves saw their necklocks fall to the ground and began to think about Daenerys' words. Who wouldn't yearn for freedom? That night, the slaves gathered together to discuss how to fight back. At this time, the Unsullied commander Gray led everyone to sneak into Myron City. He brought weapons to these slaves. Gray said that even if the slaves were only free for a day, they would be happier than being exploited and bullied by others all their lives. No one could give them freedom. They had to win it themselves. Gray called on the slaves to fight together. The slaves listened and excitedly rose up and killed the slave owners. Just like that, Daenerys did not lose a single soldier and took down Myron. She took over the navy of this land. At this time, there was good news. Prince Joffrey Baratheon had been assassinated. Now was the opportunity to take back the Iron Throne. But there was also bad news. The two strongholds that Daenerys had liberated were controlled by the slave owners. Jorah advised Daenerys not to care about these slaves anymore. The urgent thing now was for her to lead the army back to Westeros. Daenerys said that she would not let those she had freed become slaves again. Daenerys would not go to Westeros anymore, but wanted to stay here. If she could not rule this place, how could she rule the Seven Kingdoms? Lord Tywin heard the news about Daenerys. He immediately wrote a letter about Jorah and deliberately gave it to Barristan. It was clear that Tywin wanted to separate Jorah and Daenerys. When Daenerys learned about this, she was angry. She did not expect that the person she trusted the most was once a spy. But Daenerys thought about Jorah and her going through so many hardships. She did not want to kill Jorah. She decided to chase Jorah away and never see him again. Because of that, Daenerys lost an assistant. Drogon was Daenerys's dragon, but it became more and more disobedient. It burned all the goats of the people. To solve this problem, Daenerys paid the owner 3 times the value of those goats, but Drogon kept on destroying. That day, a villager brought the remains of his child to see Daenerys. Drogon had not returned for several days. Daenerys was very angry, but had no other choice. To prevent the remaining 2 dragons from causing trouble, Daenerys locked them in the basement. She even put iron chains on them. Daenerys did not expect that she had tried to unchain the slaves, but now she had to put iron chains on her own children. Rhaego and Viserion screamed in despair. Daenerys sadly left the dungeon. After Daenerys captured Myron, she chose to stay here and start her career as a ruler. A person who did not know how to rule like her had to face many difficulties. The first thing Daenerys did after liberating Myron was to nail 163 slave owners to crosses. This led to the dissatisfaction of the descendants of these slave owners. They felt that she was trying to please the slaves. Then the Children of Happy started a rebellion. They killed several Unsullied soldiers. The Children of Happy were an underground organization in Myron. Because Daenerys wanted to defeat them, she destroyed the statue of Happy as a warning. Next, Daenerys ordered the Unsullied soldiers to strengthen their defenses. After a period of searching, Daario and Gray captured a member of the Happy organization, but he did not say a word. Because Daenerys could not get any useful information, Barristan told Daenerys about her father, the Mad King. He advised Daenerys to be merciful when ruling. She decided to judge the Happy organization fairly, but suddenly an incident arose. A former slave named Massador killed a member of the Happy organization who was captured the day before. This made Daenerys very angry. Now she wanted to create a city with laws, so she judged Massador in front of everyone. The former slaves begged Daenerys to spare him, but Daenerys still sentenced Massador to death. She believed that the law was what made people live more disciplined, and no one should violate it. This made the people very dissatisfied. They did not understand the law, nor what governance was. They only knew that Daenerys had killed their people. At this time, a former slave threw a stone at the nobles. All the people began to quarrel. The chaotic scene at this time made Daenerys very scared. Barristan had no choice but to quickly cover her and leave. Daenerys was very inexperienced in politics. She couldn't please everyone. When Daenerys still couldn't stabilize the people's hearts, the Happy organization was preparing to act. They lured the patrolling Unsullied into a trap to surround them. Although the Happy organization wasn't strong, their numbers were large. Soon, only Gray was left, the 3 Unsullied, trying to resist. It was at this moment that Barristan arrived in time to join the battle. Barristan was the strongest warrior in the Seven Kingdoms. He crossed the continent to chase after Daenerys just to fulfill his oath. He used his blood and life to maintain glory and honor. Barristan was a true knight, but he was old. He had many things he wanted to do but couldn't. Barristan and Gray were both seriously injured very quickly, but they still persevered until the last moment. Barristan eventually lost too much blood and died. His whole life was a legend. A brave warrior should die on the battlefield, not in an anonymous alley, by the hands of masked men. Daenerys was furious. Barristan's death made her lose her mind. Daenerys decided to rule in her own way. She captured all the nobles and led them to the dragon's dungeon. She let one of the nobles be fed to the dragon. This made the other nobles tremble, but massacre is never the way to solve the problem. problem. After Daenerys calmed down, she still chose to compromise. She decided to reopen the arena and prepared to frame the noble. The arena was a traditional activity of Myron. Gladiators could kill each other here. The winner got glory and a chance to become famous. On the other hand, Jorah was wandering around. At this time, he was drinking to relieve his sorrow in a tavern. Here, Jorah unexpectedly met Tyrion Lannister. Jorah kidnapped him. The Lannisters are the enemy of Daenerys. Jorah intended to bring him back to Daenerys to atone for his sins, but Tyrion could no longer live in Westeros. He originally intended to surrender to Daenerys. Unexpectedly, he accidentally met Jorah, who also wanted to take him there. From here to Meereen, which is very far, if Jorah and Tyrion wanted to avoid the pirates, they could only go around Valyria. Valyria was a long-lost city, the birthplace of House Targaryen. It was once the greatest city in the world, but it was destroyed on the Day of Doom. Today, Valyria is just a ruin. The appearance of Drogon broke Tyrion's silence. Drogon was Daenerys' dragon. He was very naughty and had left home for a while. This was the first time Tyrion had seen a dragon. He did not expect that a long-extinct creature, like a bat dragon, would be reborn. Suddenly, a stone man jumped onto their boat. This was a man infected with the grayscale disease. Anyone who was touched by them would be infected. This disease could not be cured, so they lost all reason to drag others to their deaths. After Jorah and Tyrion battled the infected, they finally escaped, but Jorah was infected with the grayscale. He knew he didn't have much time left to live. After Tyrion survived the danger, he immediately told Jorah about his situation. Tyrion was framed by his father and sister for a crime he did not commit. The woman he loved was also taken away. At this time, Jorah also mentioned his father again. He was a good person who cared about others sincerely, but in the end, he was killed by his subordinates. Jorah felt very remorseful. He had traded slaves and brought shame to his family, so Jorah felt he was no longer qualified to see his father, but he could not have imagined that he would never see his father again. On the way, Jorah and Tyrion encountered pirates hunting for slaves. The two were then captured. When Tyrion learned that the arena had been reopened, he immediately introduced Jorah. He said that he and Jorah could help the pirates win. The pirates saw that Jorah was also in good health, so they agreed with Tyrion. The two of them wandered around and finally arrived at Meereen. In the arena, Daenerys witnessed this kind of competition for the first time. She found it horrifying. Daenerys could not accept that people fought with their lives just to create joy for the audience. As Daenerys was about to leave, Jorah put on his helmet and joined the battle. He quickly dealt with the others and came before Daenerys. But when Jorah took off his helmet, Daenerys still wanted to send him away. Jorah said that he had brought a gift for Daenerys. Then Tyrion came out. Tyrion was smart. He realized that Daenerys did not have enough experience on the battlefield, so Tyrion convinced Daenerys to keep him with Jorah. Daenerys could not forgive Jorah, but she did not want to kill him either, so Daenerys ordered Jorah to be sent away again. Then when the final battle was about to begin the next day, Jorah appeared again and asked to fight for Daenerys. Jorah was sent away twice and returned twice. Daenerys saw how loyal he was, and she could not control her feelings. No man had ever treated her so sincerely except Drogo. Daenerys' applause was like her approval of Jorah, though she was also worried that Jorah would die on the field. This fight would not be as easy as the last. The field was filled with very strong men who had survived the previous fights. Jorah fought hard but finally won. Suddenly, Jorah lifted his spear and threw it at Daenerys. The spear hit a Happy who was ambushing behind her. It turned out that the Happy organization had been ambushing in the arena for a long time. They started to cause trouble here. Jorah officially returned to Daenerys' side. At this time, the leader of the nobles, Mora, was killed by the Happies. This was a good thing for Daenerys, because she didn't have to think of a reason to blame him. Jorah and Dario quickly protected Daenerys and left, but the exit was closed. The Happy organization's people surrounded the area very quickly. Facing so many fully equipped enemies, the Unsullied warriors fell one by one. In that dangerous situation, Daenerys grabbed Missandei's hand and slowly closed her eyes, but a dragon roar suddenly rang out. That terrifying sound attracted everyone's attention. The situation of the battle was reversed in a flash. The fire dragon Drogon rushed out from the fire. Drogon was determined not to let anyone hurt his mother. When Daenerys saw Drogon fighting to protect her, she felt very happy. The Happies kept throwing spears at Drogon. Daenerys loved him very much. She tried to climb on Drogon's back and told him to take her. Drogon immediately took Daenerys up into the sky. Daenerys' era of dragon control officially began. This was the first time Daenerys rode a dragon into the sky. She did not control its flight direction, so she and Drogon flew straight to the north. They stopped at Vaes Dothrak, the homeland of the Dothraki. At this time, Drogon was very injured. Daenerys felt sorry for him, but the most important thing was that she had to return to Meereen first, because the people there there needed her. But Drogon got angry. Daenerys had just climbed on Drogon's back when he threw her off. Daenerys had no choice but to go find food herself. Another Dothraki leader happened to see her. Daenerys saw that the situation was not good. She immediately dropped the ring in her hand to mark it. Sure enough, the Dothraki tied her up. They treated her as a gift to Moro. He was the current leader of the Dothraki tribe. Moro had never seen such a beautiful girl. He tried to touch Daenerys. This action frightened her, and she revealed her identity. Daenerys said she was Storm of the Targaryens, the one who does not burn, the Queen of Meereen, the breaker of chains, and her suitors were lined up all over the continent. Daenerys's words not only had no effect, but also made Moro laugh. Daenerys saw this and added that she was the wife of the leader Drogo. Moro apologized after hearing that, saying that he did not know about this. According to Dothraki tradition, bullying the widows of leaders is taboo. Indeed, Daenerys's method worked, but the Dothraki have a tradition that the widows of leaders must go to Vaes Dothrak to live alone until old age. So